So Nintendo releases their financial information for the first half of this fiscal year, and you can tell they really need the Switch 2 pretty quickly. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I just wanted to go through some of the information released in that financial report pretty quickly. First, we'll take a look at their consolidated financial highlights. And you can see here that for the first half of this fiscal year, net sales decreased by 34.3% year on year, and operating profit has decreased by 56.6%. So definitely some massive decreases for this fiscal year so far. And then you can see here in their consolidated sales report that sales from their dedicated video game platform business, so that's like all the Switch stuff, decreased 34.1% year on year. And then their mobile and IP related business, now this is stuff like the Super Mario Bros. Movie and the mobile apps, sales for that decreased by 34.3% year on year. Now obviously they didn't have a Super Mario Bros. Movie this year, so I'm not surprised to see a big decrease here. And then next you can see their gross profit, and with the decrease in net sales, their gross profit declined 32.6% year on year. However, even though there was a decrease in first-party software sales, the gross profit margin increased by 1.5 percentage points year on year. Now, Nintendo says this is due to factors such as the increase in digital sales, as well as a decrease in the proportion of the Nintendo Switch OLED model sales, because that particular model has a lower profit margin than the other Nintendo Switch models. Now we'll add that Nintendo did have that Echoes of Wisdom Switch Lite out in this last half of the fiscal year, so that might have been a higher proportion of their sales. And with all the decreases in sales here, Nintendo did modify their financial forecast. You can see here that they lowered their projected operating profit by 10%. And to go along with that, down here at the bottom, you can see that they lowered their projected sales of Switch systems by 7.4%, taking it from a forecasted 13.5 million units to 12.5 million units. And from what I can remember, that forecasted sales number that they previously had would have put them really close to matching what the PlayStation 2 did in sales, which was 155 million units. Although there's some dispute that the PlayStation actually sold more than that, but we don't have any other official numbers. So this new forecasted sales would put them just under 154 million units. Now it's worth noting that they've only sold about 5 million Switches in the first half of this fiscal year, but obviously with the Christmas season coming up, you're going to see an increase in those sales. So even though they aren't even halfway to that new forecast of 12.5 million units, that seems pretty plausible with the Christmas season coming up. Now when Nintendo compares the first half of this fiscal year to the same time period last year, you can see that overall Switch hardware sales are down 31%, but you do see an increase in Switch Lite sales by 7.5%, and again I believe that's because of that Echoes of Wisdom Special Edition. And since we're talking about Echoes of Wisdom, you can see here on the right that the game has sold 2.58 million units since it was released. And that was just back on September 26th. So they sold a lot of Echoes of Wisdom, and I imagine they're going to sell quite a bit more during the Christmas season. And Nintendo again takes this opportunity to remind us that this year they didn't have a Super Mario Bros. Movie. They also didn't have a Tears of the Kingdom get released. But sales did grow steadily for new titles such as Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and of course Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. And since I mentioned the digital sale proportion earlier, we'll take a look at this chart here. You can see digital sales for the first half of the fiscal year decreased by 26.5% year on year. However, again, Nintendo points out as a proportion of software sales, digital sales increased 6.1%. So even though there's less software being sold, a higher percentage of it is digital. Now, digital sales did decline mostly due to a decrease in downloadable software versions, as well as add-on content for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I would think in the next quarter you're going to see another increase in the proportion of digital sales, mostly because they have so many versions of the Switch that are coming with some type of game bundled with it during this Christmas season. So every Switch sold with a game bundled with it is going to increase the number of digital software sales. So what does the future hold for Nintendo? I thought we'd take a look again here. They remind us at what games they do have coming up in the near future. You can see here they've already released Super Mario Party Jamboree, but that's going to be on the second half of this fiscal year. And then we have Mario and Luigi Brothership coming out in just a couple of days. And Fitness Boxing 3, your personal trainer, coming December 5th. I'm not sure how high of a seller that one's going to be, but they do include it here because it is licensed to be released and sold as a Nintendo product in select regions outside of Japan. And then next we have Donkey Kong Country Returns HD on January 16th of next year, followed by Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition coming out March 20th. And then we have the two upcoming titles sometime in 2025, Pokemon Legends AZ. And then finally we have a release window for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for 2025. I've gotten so used to just seeing to be determined in that release date column here for this game. It's good to finally have at least a window here that we can look forward to. So after looking at all this information, you can tell it's definitely not been a good half for Nintendo so far this fiscal year. However, they're still making money, they're not losing money, there's no threat of Nintendo going out of business. And we've heard reports of Nintendo asking some third parties to try to come up with some remasters to release on the Switch. And after looking at all these sales numbers, you can kind of see why. And Nintendo President Furukawa did have an online press conference. You can see some of his quotes here from Reuters. For a platform that is in its 8th year in the market, both hardware and software enjoy stable demand and brisk sales. But sales so far fell short of our original projections. Taking into consideration their sales in the first half, we've revised our forecast for both hardware and software, and that led to the earnings revision. And then Reuters adds here with no quote, Furukawa said there was no change to Nintendo's plan to announce a successor to its long-lasting Switch console in the current fiscal year to March, but it did not go into specifics. And now that we're getting into the shopping season for Christmas and we see that Switch sales have gone down from what they were expecting, I don't think we're going to see any kind of Switch 2 announcement this calendar year. I know a lot of people thought since the original Switch was announced about this time of year that we might see a Switch 2 announcement come now. But at this point I'm thinking it's probably going to be January or February before we see that. In fact, I think if Nintendo is going to try to get the Switch out in say like April or May of next year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a February announcement with a really quick turnaround for pre-orders. We're probably not going to see the same kind of pacing that we saw with the Switch release, mostly because the Wii U was doing so poorly that Nintendo just needed to build hype for something else. But again, Nintendo's not going out of business. Nintendo did not lose a whole bunch of money. They basically didn't make as much as they normally do. They lowered some forecasts. But it's obvious that they really do need to have a really successful launch for the Switch 2. But let me know your thoughts below. Do you think it's a good idea for Nintendo at this point to hold off any kind of Switch 2 announcement until after the Christmas season? And how quickly do you think the turnaround will be from that announcement until we see pre-orders go live for that system? Drop your comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider doing so. It really does help the channel out quite a bit. I want to thank you for watching and be good.